The shadow of fear. The darkness of space had never felt more threatening than it did in the year 2387. Across the Outer Rim territories, entire civilizations whispered the same name in terror, the Zephyrians. These beings had emerged from the Yao, unknown regions of the galaxy like a plague of metal and fire, their sleek black warships cutting through space with deadly precision. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, her dark eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of the navigation screens. At 34, she was one of the youngest captains in the United Earth Space Command, but her reputation for getting results in impossible situations had earned her the respect of even the most seasoned veterans. Her black hair was pulled back, in a regulation ponytail, and her uniform bore the scars of countless missions along the frontier. The Prometheus itself was a marvel of human engineering, a Titan-class battleship that stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull gleamed with a metallic blue finish that caught starlight like captured lightning. Hidden beneath its armored exterior lay weapon systems that pushed the boundaries of human technology, including one very special secret that even Captain Chen's crew knew nothing about. Commander Marcus Torres approached from the communications station, his weathered face showing concern. Torres was a veteran of the Centauri conflicts, his salt and pepper beard giving him the appearance of a man who had seen too much war. His muscular frame moved with the confident stride of someone who had never backed down from a fight. "Captain, we're receiving fragmented distress signals from the Kepler research station," Torres reported, his voice carrying the weight of bad news. "The transmissions are disturbing." Chen turned from the viewport where she had been watching the stars. "Put it through, Marcus." The bridge speakers crackled to life with static, then a terrified voice broke through. "This is Dr. Harrison at Kepler Station. They came out of nowhere. Ships like nothing we've ever seen. They're not responding to any communications. They're just destroying everything. The Andromedan colony ships, thousands of civilians. Someone please." The transmission cut to static, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Chen felt her jaw tighten. The Andromedans were one of the most peaceful species in known space, their entire culture built around art, philosophy, and scientific research. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her science station, her brown eyes wide with shock. The young scientist had joined the Prometheus crew fresh from the Advanced Weapons Research Division, her brilliant mind focused on theoretical physics and quantum mechanics. Her curly black hair was always slightly disheveled from running her hands through it when she was thinking, which was most of the time. "Captain, I've been monitoring intelligence reports about the Zephyrians," Dr. Vasquez said, her voice trembling slightly. "In the past 3 months, they've completely destroyed 23 star systems. Not conquered, destroyed. They leave nothing behind but debris and silence." Chen walked to the central command chair, her mind racing through possibilities. Kepler Station was 3 days outside their assigned patrol route. Command had been very clear about maintaining their current mission parameters, but the thought of innocent beings dying while they followed orders made her stomach turn. "What do we know about Zephyrian tactics?" she asked. Torres pulled up a holographic display showing scattered intelligence reports. "Not much, Captain. They appear to use some kind of energy-draining technology that shuts down enemy ships before destroying them. No species has ever successfully engaged them in battle and survived to report back. Their ships are fast, heavily armed, and they seem to travel in fleets of 12 to 15 vessels." Chen studied the data, her strategic mind analyzing every detail. Something about the Zephyrian attacks bothered her. They were too efficient, too systematic. This wasn't random destruction, it was calculated extermination. "Dr. Vasquez, what's the status of Project Stormbreaker?" Chen asked quietly. The scientist's eyes widened in surprise. Project Stormbreaker was the most classified technology aboard the Prometheus, known only to a handful of the senior crew. It was an experimental quantum disruptor weapon that could theoretically tear apart the molecular bonds of any target, but it had never been tested in actual combat. "The quantum disruptor is operational, Captain, but the power requirements are enormous. We'd only get one shot, and if it doesn't work..." Dr. Vasquez left the sentence hanging. Chen nodded. understanding the implications. If they revealed humanity's most advanced weapon and it failed, they would have shown their hand for nothing. But if they did nothing, more innocents would die. The bridge doors opened with a soft hiss, and Lieutenant Jake Morrison entered carrying a datapad. The young communications officer was barely 25, his blonde hair and eager expression making him look even younger. He had grown up on the outer colonies and joined the Space Command to see the galaxy, but the reality of space warfare was proving harsher than his childhood dreams. "Captain, I've managed to clean up more of the distress signal," Morrison said, his voice tight with emotion. There were at least 50,000 Andromedans in that system. Families, children, research scientists. The Zephyrians didn't even give them a chance to surrender. Chen felt something cold settle in her chest. She had spent her entire career protecting human colonies, but this was different. This was about standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves, regardless of species. "Marcus, how long? To reach the Kepler system at maximum warp?" she asked. Torres checked his calculations. 18 hours, Captain, but our orders are to maintain patrol along the Vega corridor. Command was very specific about not deviating from our assigned route. Chen stood up and walked to the viewport again, staring out at the infinite darkness of space. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was being wiped out while she followed bureaucratic orders. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Sometimes, Marcus, you have to choose between following orders and doing what's right," she said finally. "Set course for the Kepler system. Maximum warp." The crew exchanged glances, understanding the weight of what their captain was risking. Disobeying direct orders could end Chen's career, but no one on the bridge questioned her decision. They had all signed up to protect the innocent, and that duty transcended military protocol. As the Prometheus changed course and leaped into warp, Chen called a senior staff meeting in the ship's war room. Around the rectangular table sat her most trusted officers, Torres, Dr. Vasquez, Morrison, and Chief Engineer Robert Kim, a quiet man whose expertise with the ship's systems was legendary throughout the fleet. "I want everyone to understand what we're heading into," Chen began, her voice steady and calm. "The Zephyrians have never lost a battle. They've destroyed entire civilizations without taking a single casualty. We're one ship going up against a force that has terrorized the galaxy for months." Chief Kim leaned forward, his dark eyes serious. "Captain, the Prometheus is a good ship, but against 15 Zephyrian vessels." He shook his head. "That's where human ingenuity comes in," Dr. Vasquez interjected, pulling up holographic schematics of the quantum disruptor. "The Stormbreaker weapon uses quantum entanglement to destabilize molecular structures. If it works as designed, it should be able to disable even their energy-draining technology." Torres studied the weapon specifications with a tactical eye. "One shot, maximum range of 5,000 kilometers, requires 90% of our reactor output." "It's a hell of a gamble, Captain," Chen nodded. "I know, but sometimes a gamble is all you have. The question is, are we going to let fear dictate our actions, or are we going to show the galaxy that some lines cannot be crossed?" The officers around the table straightened, their faces showing determination despite the odds against them. This was why they had joined the Space Command, to stand between civilization and the darkness that threatened to consume it. 18 hours later, the Prometheus dropped out of warp at the edge of the Kepler system. What they found exceeded their worst fears. Where once a thriving research station and peaceful Andromedan colonies had existed, now there was only debris and the twisted remains of ships. Floating among the wreckage were the distinctive curved hulls of Andromedan vessels, their beautiful organic designs now broken and lifeless. "Scanning for survivors," Morrison reported, his voice hollow with shock. "Energy signatures detected," Torres announced suddenly. 12 Zephyrian vessels bearing 27 Mark IV. They're still here." On the main screen, the Zephyrian fleet appeared like black daggers against the stars. Each ship was roughly the size of the Prometheus, their hulls covered in angular armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with predatory grace, circling the debris field like scavengers picking over bones. Chen felt anger rise in her chest as she watched the alien ships desecrating the remains of what had once been a peaceful system. These beings had come from nowhere to spread terror and death, and no one had stood up to them. "Open a channel," she ordered. Morrison's hands flew over his console. "Channel open, Captain." Chen stood up, her voice carrying across space with quiet authority. "Zephyrian vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Battleship Prometheus. You have committed acts of genocide against innocent civilizations. Withdraw from this system immediately, or face the consequences." When humanity strikes back, the response came swiftly and without diplomacy. The lead Zephyrian vessel, larger than the others with additional weapon arrays bristling from its dark hull, transmitted a reply that chilled the blood of everyone who heard it. "Human vessel, you are insignificant. Your species is unknown to us, but you will share the fate of all inferior beings. Prepare for extinction." The voice was cold, mechanical, devoid of any emotion that might suggest these beings understood concepts like mercy or negotiation. Admiral Kethvar, commander of the Zephyrian Ninth Fleet, regarded the human ship on his viewer with the same interest he might show a particularly annoying insect. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, Kethvar was typical of his species. Pale, gray skin stretched over a skeletal frame, forearms ending in razor-sharp claws and large black eyes that seemed to absorb light. His mouth was filled with needle-like teeth designed for tearing flesh, though the Zephyrians had long ago transcended the need for physical sustenance, surviving instead on the energy they drained from conquered worlds. "Interesting," Kethvar mused to his subordinates. "This species dares to challenge us despite witnessing our capabilities. Perhaps they will provide more entertainment than the pathetic Andromedans." Back on the Prometheus, Chen felt the familiar calm that always settled over her before battle. Around her, the bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, their training taking over despite the overwhelming odds they faced. "All ships are powering weapons," Torres reported. "They're using some kind of energy siphoning technology. I'm reading massive power fluctuations from their forward arrays." Dr. Vasquez worked frantically at her console, running final calculations on the quantum disruptor. "Captain, I need 2 minutes to bring the Stormbreaker online. The power requirements are so massive that we'll have to route energy from life support and artificial gravity." "Do it," Chen ordered without hesitation. "Marcus, evasive maneuvers, keep us moving, and buy Elena the time she needs." The Prometheus suddenly lurched to starboard as the first Zephyrian energy beams lanced through space, where it had been moments before. The human ship was smaller and more maneuverable than its opponents, and Chief Kim had modified the engines beyond standard specifications, giving them an edge in speed and agility. The Zephyrian fleet spread out in a hunting formation that they had used to destroy countless civilizations. They had learned that most species panicked when faced with superior numbers, making tactical errors that led to quick defeats. But as the battle began, Admiral Kethvar realized that these humans were different. Instead of trying to flee or making desperate attacks, the Prometheus moved with calculated precision, using the debris field as cover while avoiding the worst of the Zephyrian firepower. The human ship's weapons were impressive, its particle cannons and quantum torpedoes striking the alien vessels with surprising accuracy, though their energy shields absorbed most of the damage. "Curious," Kethvar observed as his flagship shook, under impact from a particularly well-placed torpedo spread. "These humans appear to be tactically competent. No matter. Deploy the energy drains." Across the Zephyrian fleet, massive projectors began to glow with sickly yellow light. This was their signature weapon, a technology that could drain power from enemy ships, leaving them helpless in space before the final destruction. On the Prometheus, warning alarms began to sound as power levels started dropping rapidly. The lights dimmed, artificial gravity fluctuated, and the engines began to lose power. "They're draining our energy," Chief Kim shouted over the alarms. "I'm rerouting power from non-essential systems, but I can't compensate for this level of drain." Chen gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered around her. This was how the Zephyrians had defeated every enemy they had ever faced, by turning their opponent's own power against them. But Chen had one advantage that no other captain had possessed. "Elena, status on Stormbreaker," she called out. 30 seconds, Captain. But the energy drain is affecting the charging sequence. The Prometheus continued to weave through the debris field, its movements becoming more sluggish as power levels dropped. Several Zephyrian ships had moved to flank them, cutting off escape routes while the energy drain continued to sap their strength. Then, floating among the wreckage of an Andromedan colony ship, Chen spotted something that gave her an idea. The organic curves of the alien vessel's hull were still intact, and its unique crystalline power core was still glowing faintly. "Jake, scan that Andromedan ship." "Are there any survivors?" she ordered. Morrison's fingers flew over his console. "One, life sign, Captain, very weak but alive." Without hesitation, Chen made a decision that would change the course of the battle. "Beam them aboard. Medical team to transporter room 1. Moments later, a slender figure materialized on the Prometheus. Ambassador Lyra was typical of her species, tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the ship's lighting. Her large silver eyes showed both fear and curiosity as she took in her human rescuers. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console with excitement. "Captain, if I can integrate Andromedan crystalline technology with our quantum disruptor, I might be able to create a resonance cascade that will make the weapon far more effective." Chen didn't hesitate. "Do it." As Dr. Vasquez and Ambassador Lyra worked together, combining human innovation with Andromedan scientific knowledge, the battle continued to rage around them. The Prometheus was now operating on emergency power, its shields flickering as the energy drain continued. Admiral Kethvar watched with growing impatience as the human ship continued to evade destruction. His fleet had the enemy surrounded. Their power was nearly depleted, yet somehow they continued to fight with a determination he had never encountered before. "End this," he commanded his subordinates. "All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel. I grow tired of their resistance." Just as the Zephyrian fleet prepared to deliver the killing blow, Dr. Vasquez shouted from her station, "Stormbreaker is ready, Captain. The Andromedan modifications have increased its range and power by 300%. Chen stood up, her voice carrying across the bridge with quiet authority. "Target the lead ship. Fire." The quantum disruptor unleashed a beam of pure energy that seemed to bend space itself. The weapon, enhanced by Andromedan crystal technology, struck Admiral Kethvar's flagship with devastating effect. The massive Zephyrian vessel simply ceased to exist, its molecular structure torn apart at the quantum level. The destruction of their flagship sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian fleet. For the first time in their history, they had encountered a weapon that could not only penetrate their defenses but completely annihilate their most powerful ships. But Chen wasn't finished. As the remaining Zephyrian vessels regrouped, trying to understand what had happened to their leader, she opened communications channels to every survivor ship in the debris field. "This is Captain Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus." Her voice rang out across space. "To all survivors of Zephyrian attacks, regardless of species, if you can still fight, if you still have weapons, now is the time to stand together. No more running. No more hiding. Today we end their reign of terror." One by one, damaged ships throughout the system began to power up their weapons. Andromedan research vessels that had been thought destroyed revealed hidden weapon systems. A small Centauri patrol craft emerged from behind an asteroid, its crew ready for revenge. Even a massive Rigelian cargo hauler, its hull scarred by battle damage, turned its industrial mining lasers toward the Zephyrian fleet. What followed was the most unusual battle in galactic history. A ragtag alliance of species that had never fought together, united by their hatred of the Zephyrians and inspired by the courage of a single human captain who had refused to back down. The quantum disruptor had one more shot, and Chen used it to destroy the largest remaining Zephyrian vessel. The combined fleet of survivors, though vastly outnumbered, fought with a desperation and creativity that the methodical Zephyrians couldn't counter. Ambassador Lyra, working alongside Dr. Vasquez, discovered that Andromedan crystal technology could disrupt the Zephyrian energy-draining weapons. As this information spread to the other ships, the tide of battle began to turn. The remaining Zephyrian vessels, faced with enemies that could resist their primary weapon and lacking their commanding admiral, began to retreat. But Chen wasn't about to let them escape to terrorize other systems. "All ships pursue," she ordered. "We end this here and now." The improvised alliance chased the fleeing Zephyrians through the debris field and beyond, their combined firepower systematically destroying each enemy vessel. The last Zephyrian ship was cornered near the system's outer asteroid belt, its crew sending desperate communications that went unanswered. As the final enemy ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, a cheer went up across the Alliance fleet. For the first time in months, the galaxy had seen the Zephyrians defeated. The reign of terror was over. 3 days later, representatives from dozens of worlds gathered aboard the Prometheus for an unprecedented ceremony. Ambassador Lyra, speaking for the survivors, addressed Captain Chen and her crew. "Captain Chen, your species was unknown to us before today, but your courage has saved countless lives. In the name of all free peoples of the galaxy, we propose the formation of the Galactic Defense Alliance with humanity as its founding protectors." Chen stood before the assembled delegates, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. She thought of all the innocent beings who had died before humanity had found the courage to act, and she made a solemn vow. The Alliance is born not from conquest, but from the simple belief that no being should live in fear. We accept this responsibility not as rulers, but as guardians. Never again will terror go unchallenged in our galaxy. As the Prometheus led the Alliance fleet toward their home worlds, Chen looked out at the stars with new understanding. Humanity had always wondered what their place would be among the great civilizations of the galaxy. Now they knew. They would be the ones who stood between civilization and chaos, the guardians who ensured that darkness would never again consume the light. The Zephyrian threat was ended, but Chen knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other threats were stirring. But now, for the first time in galactic history, the galaxy had defenders who would never retreat, never surrender, and never allow innocence to face annihilation alone. The age of human guardianship had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.